Hey, what's going on, you Future Pyroar? Coming at you with my Shrouded Fable set review and buy list. I know I'm coming at y'all with this a little bit close to release. The set comes out on PTCG Live tomorrow. I'm going to try and be a couple weeks earlier for future set reviews and buy lists. But let's go ahead, let's jump into it. It's a small set. Shrouded Fable is not very big. It's like a special set. It's not a main set release. Before we do, though, big shout out to TC Evolution, sponsoring me as a competitor and with everything I do here with my content on the YouTube channel, Twitch live stream, stuff like that. If you guys want to be beating your opponent, not just beating your opponent, but beating your opponent in style, then you need to get the TC Evolution's accessories, highest quality premium accessories in the game. They got V-Star markers, ability markers, dice, damage counters, you name it, they got it. Check them out, tcevolutions.com. Link, of course, will be in the description, and you can use code AzulGG over there as well to get yourself a discount. So for this, like my previous set reviews with buy list, I'm only gonna be talking about the cards that I did put on my buy list. I'm not gonna be talking about everything in this set. The more meme stuff, not gonna quite be covering as in depth. I might mention it here and there as we go through it. First up that made the buy list was the Joltik. I put this in as a 4 of on my buy list. With cards like this, usually if I'm gonna add it at all, I'm gonna add it as a 4 of. And the reason we want some 40 HP Joltiks potentially, and I did work on a Galvantula build, Galvantula EX. It doesn't come out this set, but it comes out in the next set. And I didn't include any 40 HP Joltiks in that build initially because, well, I don't know if we need them. The reason you'd want that extra 10 HP here on a Joltik would be if Dragapult is really popular, or decks attacking with Dragapult like Regidrago are super popular. Then if you have like 2 Joltiks on your bench, they could both get KO'd by a single Dragapult attack, or like Monkey Dory moving 30 damage from their side to your side could also KO a Joltik. So it's possible you're going to want some 40 HP Joltiks or only 40 HP Joltiks in the Galvantula EX deck. So 4 of this Joltik did make it to my buy list. I didn't put any of the Galvantula on my buy list because I think the way the matchup would break down against Charizard. Now, this card is good against Charizard, and that's about it. I don't think you'd ever want this Galvantula. So the Galvantula did not make its way onto my buy list at all. Up next, we've got the Dartrix United Wings. I don't think it's going to be super popular, or super powerful, excuse me. It could be super popular. That'd be a little bit weird, but it won't be super powerful on release, despite the release of the Dartrix, another United Wings attacker. So we got 3 other United Wings attackers in the format. They all do 20 damage for each of our Pokemon in our discard pile that has the United Wings attack. Dartrix is no different. United Wings attack, 20 damage times. So it boosts the damage across the board for the United Wings deck, because now you have more United Wings Pokemon you can get into your discard pile. And it was never really a problem of potentially getting all of those into the discard pile by like turn 4. So now there's just more things we can put in our discard pile to do more damage more aggressively, more consistently in the Dartrix. It also gives us Grass type, which allows us to reach pretty reasonable one-hit KOs on Charizard by like turn 2. Like I said, current format, what we're looking at, I don't think United Wings is going to be super powerful initially in the meta, because you still have stuff like Regidrago and Dragapult. Lost Zone decks will probably take a back seat overall in the format, the Shrouded Fable format, with the way the meta will probably develop. But I don't think Sableye not existing in the format is enough. Also, there's stuff like Dusknoir and Dusclops and Charizard decks even. I know we get the grass weakness over on them, but Dusclops and Dusknoir being able to more aggressively remove our Pokemon from play, even if we get a prize card when they use that ability, I don't think it's going to make up for it quite enough. So United Wings, I think it's got the potential. Initially on release, I don't expect it to be super popular, but I did put a 4/4 of the Rowlet and the Dartrix on my buy list. This is the best Rowlet that has 70 HP. With the add-on attack for a colorless energy, the 1 retreat cost. So this made it on the buy list as a 4 of as well. I don't think we'll probably play 4 Rowlet in United Wings decks. Probably 2 to 3 will be the count you go with. But I could definitely see the meta developing to the point where having the ability of attacking with the grass United Wings attacker in the Dartrix being good enough that you'd actually want to run like a 4/4 Dartrix line. So buy list, made 4 Rowlet, 4 Dartrix. Also, this site, justinbasil.com, I don't usually use it, so I'm sure some of you will ask, what is the site that you're using? Yeah, justinbasil.com. I'll leave a link in the description so y'all can find it more easily. And you'll be seeing me using this site a lot more moving forward for videos like this. I really like the layout of everything and how easy it is to find all the little things that I'm looking for. And I'll put the buy list as well in the description. So if you want the buy list or you want to check out this site, justinbasil.com, both will be in the description. I'm going to skip the Kingdra EX. I don't think it has that competitive potential. Neither does the Weavile or the Revavroom EX. And then we get to maybe going to be the most impactful card from this set. And it made it on its way onto my buy list as a 4/4/2 line. And that is the Dusknoir with the Cursed Blast ability. Once on your turn, you may put 13 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. If you use this ability, this Pokemon is knocked out. So you're effectively KOing yourself to put 13 damage counters on just one of your opponent's Pokemon. You can't split up the damage. That'd be a little bit too powerful, I think. You could KO something like a Pidgey and a Charmander on turn 2 after you went first by going Candy Dusknoir. That's too good. So it is limited to just one Pokemon, but the trade-off is still pretty powerful. Even though you're giving your opponent a prize card, scenarios like That could come up specifically for Charizard, which is the main deck that this is being included in. I believe Dragapult is also running the Dusknoir, but to less success overall. It might be the best way to play Dragapult. Dragapult's just not as good as Charizard, though, in the current meta. But you could do something up against Lugia where you use Curse Blast to KO their Chinchino if they just use Chinchino to knock out one of your Charizards. And then with your Charizard, you could KO a Lugia or an Archeops or something else. So you are still giving your opponent a prize card for you to be able to take a prize card or potentially 2 prize cards if you're cleaning up like a 2-hit KO with the Curse Blast, but you're removing resources and threats from your opponent's side of the field, utilizing your prize cards or your opponent's prize cards almost as a resource in that way, where it's like, all right, I'm going to give you a prize card, but I'm going to take away your main attacker on the field because of this, and now your board is devastated, and even though you got an extra prize card for me KOing my own Dusknoir, you lose the game because now you don't have access to this attacker. And the Dusclops, of course, same ability as the Dusknoir, that Cursed Blast. Put 5 damage challenge on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Once again, it is knocked out. So not as powerful as the Dusknoir, but it is the stage 1. When we get to the stage 2, we get the more powerful effect of the Cursed Blast. And I have it as a 4-4-2 on my buy list. Most Charizard lists are playing like a 2-1-1 Dusknoir line, but I've seen some decks floating around with like a 4-4 Duskull Dusclops, maybe a Dusknoir in there. And the point of the deck is just to aggressively board wipe your opponent. I could definitely see those decks actually being pretty powerful. There's like one with Lost City in it and like the Lost Zone Sableye to spread damage. So you basically go first, and then turn 2, you evolve a bunch of Duskulls to Dusclops, KO all your Dusclops with Lost City in play. When Lost City says when one of your Pokemon is knocked out, it goes to the Lost Zone. So you build up your Lost Zone really, really fast, and then you attack with Sableye on like turn 2 pretty consistently. You get to put 15 damage counters in play in portions of 5 across the board, and then you get to use Sableye to clean up other stuff. So going first against like a Gardevoir deck or a Charizard deck or a Dragapult deck, you probably just win turn 2. You just board wipe them. They can't respond with an attack. And then from there, you just continuously attack with Sableye and limit their bench for the rest of the game. So yeah, could be some pretty powerful decks like that. Maybe not just like a thinner line in a Dragapult deck or a Charizard deck. So it made a 4-4-2 on my buy list. I almost put like 4 Dusknoir, but I don't think you'd ever need that thick of a Dusknoir count. So yeah, 4-4-2 on the buy list. The Ursaluna didn't quite make its way onto my buy list. The ability's good. An interesting form of energy acceleration. I don't think it'll quite make it though. So yeah, I'm not blown away by the ability overall. Also just kind of the clunkiness of the card. The attack's a little bit awkward unless you're building a deck around it with like Iron Valiant, and it's got 4 retreat costs, which is never a good thing. So even if you're putting this in play to accelerate energy to then like E-switch the energy around or something, your opponent being able to gust this thing up is just going to be detrimental. So yeah, didn't quite make the buy list from the Ursaluna. Now we move on to the dark Pokemon. I'll start with the Absol here. Absol made its way onto my buy list as a 1-of because it is a 1 prize dark attacker. That's a little bit different from the rest of the ones we have available to us. The notable ones that we have available besides the Absol now would be the Roaring Moon, the Ancient Roaring Moon, 140 HP for 2 dark energy to 70 plus 10 for each ancient card in your discard pile. So has a higher retreat cost though. Oh no, it has a retreat cost of 1 still, doesn't it? Roaring Moon. Wait, now I'm just kind of tripping. I actually don't remember. In my head, I think it has a retreat cost of 2, but I'm pretty sure it actually has a retreat cost of 1. So you got the more HP. The biggest drawback there, of course, is going to be the two darkness energy to be able to attack. Now, when we attack with Absol, we will probably have a dark energy on it, but it only requires 1 dark energy. No, Roaring Moon does have 2 retreat costs. Okay, so that is a little bit of a drawback. This does have that 1 retreat cost, which could be beneficial. It's like the other attackers. You never mind having Roaring Moon in your active in the Ancient Box deck. The other things that you might have in your active, those are important to have 1 retreat cost, but Roaring Moon doesn't. Okay. Darkfall, 20 damage plus 50 more damage if you have at least 3 dark energy in play. Like I said, there'll probably be a dark energy on Absol, 2 more dark energy in play from Dark Patches or Janine's Secret Technique or Professor Sada in like a Roaring Moon deck. The other notable 1 prize attacker in the format is the Morpeko. It's got attack that does 70 damage for 2 dark energy, and it moves those dark energy to your bench Pokemon. And then if it has no energy attached to it, it has free retreat. So the Morpeko, also a pretty solid option, the same amount of damage, but it does require 2 energy on the Morpeko, right? So that's kind of the difference here. Also, it has less HP, which could also be a factor in you trying to determine which 1 prize dark attacker you want in your deck. So that's why I've added the Absol to the buy list as a 1-of. You just want those options. You never know when it's going to be like that little bit difference from what else is being played in the meta that you'd want to pivot between the Roaring Moon to the Morpeko to the Absol. Now we have a new option for a 1 prize dark attacker. The Yveltal also made onto my buy list as a 2-of, some form of a spread attacker for the dark energy. Seems pretty good potentially in Frostlass decks that already play dark energy to combo with the Monkey Dory. Now you can include the Yveltal as well for 1 dark energy. It does 2 damage counters to each of your opponent's Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. So obviously he's got that synergy with the Frostlass and Monkey Dory with the Corrosive Winds. Seems decent, so I went ahead and threw it on there. I do like the Frostlass Monkey Dory deck. It's not super high tier, but it's a cool deck. For the EX Dark Pokemon, of course, we have the potential of the Dark deck, the Okidogi, Monkey Dory, Pecharunt, Dark Den. You probably have a Pheasantipity in there as well. I actually put a list out on the YouTube channel a couple days ago with a Dark Box Loyal 3 style deck. There's definitely a lot of room in there, and I'm really actually intrigued by like a potentially heavier Monkey Dory EX build. So this all made it onto my buy list as 3 of on the Okidogi, because I think if you were to play a deck that was more focused around Okidogi with that chain crazed attack, this 130 plus 130, if this Pokemon is poisoned for 2 dark and a colorless, you could potentially play up to 3 of these. Nightly stretchers would probably get involved before you added the 3rd Okidogi, but maybe you'd go with 3 of them if it was depending on the format. If you just need heavy hitter after heavy hitter after heavy hitter, you'd probably want to lean more into a heavier Okidogi count. You probably would never play 4, so 3 Okidogi on the buy list. For the Monkey Dory, actually, I put it on the buy list as a 4 of. Maybe I'm being a little bit hopeful with this card, but I think there is a possibility that you could just play a quad Monkey Dory deck. This thing's got 210 HP, which on a 2-prizer isn't a lot, but its ability, oh no you don't, if this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, if you have a Pecharunt EX in play, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize cards. So you could also run Legacy Energy in here, and effectively your opponent would be knocking out a 210 HP Pokemon and only taking 1 prize card every single time they knock out a Monkey Dory. That seems pretty decent. You're also doing 190 damage with the Dirty Headbutt for Dark colorless, and then you can't use Dirty Headbutt next turn, but utilizing the Pecharunt's ability, if we have 2 Monkey Dories set up, even if our opponent doesn't take a KO on their turn, we can just switch between Monkey Dories and do 190 over and over and over again with a 210 HP Dark Pokemon. I guess it's effectively like 190 HP because we're going to get poisoned by our own Pecharunt, but still, that's a lot of HP for a 1-prize Pokemon. I'm kind of hopeful for the potential of that. I did put it on my buy list as a 4 of, but if you're not as optimistic about the quad Monkey Dory EX deck as I am, you probably only need 2 of these to combo with some kind of Loyal 3 Dark Box deck. I'll go to the Pecharunt here first. A broken ability here with that Subjugating Change. Once during your turn, you may switch one of your bench Dark Pokemon, except any Pecharunt EX, with your active Pokemon. If you do, the new active Pokemon is now poisoned. You can't use more than 1 Subjugating Change ability, a Subjugating Chains ability each turn. So really, really powerful ability in Dark decks. We're going to see this card being played in the Loyal 3 Dark Box, in Roaring Moon EX decks. Probably won't see it in Ancient Box just because you don't really want to put 2 prizes in play in the Ancient Box deck, although theoretically wouldn't be terrible to include, but you won't see it in there, I don't think. So any kind of Dark, big basic type deck, even in like Charizard EX, this is a potential inclusion to help with the Stall matchup. So Stall gets their Snorlax set up, they bring up, I don't know, your Pidgeot and put a Snorlax in their active. You can go bench Pecharunt, push up your Charizard EX. It is poisoned now, but I don't think you really care because Stall doesn't really do damage, and you're swinging again turn after turn after turn. This basically beats Stall as far as I can tell. Now, Charizard is not having as hard of a time with Stall in the Shrouded Fable format because of Dusknoir. Dusknoir allows you to put some damage in play. It also knocks itself out, which then gives your opponent a prize card, which boosts Charizard damage. So now all of a sudden, Charizard is going from never being able to one-hit KO anything on the Snorlax side of the field if they have like a Bravery Charm to be able to one-hit KO most things, except for like things that have Hero Escape, but you still plan to play like a Lost Vacuum for the Hero Escape and stuff like that. So I don't know if Pecharunt's necessary to get Charizard to beat Stall anymore. Dusknoir definitely helps, but if it isn't quite enough, if the Dusknoir's not quite enough to consistently beat it, and you really want to take that extra step, especially in at a local tournament where you know some Stall players are going to show up, then including like a Pecharunt EX in your Charizard deck could be a big difference between like potentially winning a tournament or not if you know Stall is going to be prevalent and the Dusknoir is not quite enough. So it has other uses outside of just being played in these big Dark decks as well. So 2 of on my buy list because for stuff like Roaring Moon and like the Loyal 3 Dark Box, I think you definitely want to at least run 2 because pricing this sounds like a nightmare. So you definitely want to run at least 2 of these in all those decks. Maybe you could play Heavy Ball instead, but even then, if your opponent decides to go after your Pecharunt, which is like part of your setup engine, to be honest, to consistently set up attackers, definitely would be worth potentially for them to go after your Pecharunt versus like just knocking out your active. Then be able to quickly and aggressively get another one in play just by playing 2 of them definitely could be a plus. And then Pheasantipity, the last Dark EX here, did make it its way into my buy list as a 2 as well. Now, you can only use 1 Flip the Script ability each turn. Once during your turn, if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you may draw 3 cards. You can't use more than 1 Flip the Script ability each turn. So you can only use it once per turn. So having 2 in play doesn't really do a whole ton, except for the fact if your opponent KO'd one of them, then you'd immediately have another one in play to be able to draw cards with. But it would reduce the odds of prize cards getting involved. That's why I like having these cards in counts of 2 just in case, because I definitely feel like there could be a deck at some point that relies very heavily on Pheasantipity's Flip the Script ability to draw cards turn to turn, and prizing it is a huge detriment So you'd want to run 2 of them. Once again, Heavy Ball could get involved, but once Heavy Ball rotates, we won't have it. So yeah, Pheasantipity makes its way onto my buy list as a 2 of. Also, it's got that Cruel Arrow attack, which from the decks that I've seen that you can include this in, you can definitely utilize in a lot of them. You know, we've been playing this card in Dark decks, so you can use it through that with Dark Patch and Janine's Secret Technique or something like that. You can play it in Lugia, and then you can load it up with energy to utilize the Cruel Arrow if you're playing it in a Lugia deck. And then also even Regidrago, you got the E-switches, the energy attachments for turn. You can build up a Cruel Arrow attack potentially in something like a Regidrago as well. So made its way onto the buy list as a 2 of. Super powerful draw ability, support Pokemon. We're gonna see a lot of play in its lifetime in the Pokemon TCG. Up next is the Genesect. Just made its way onto my buy list as a 1 of with that Ace Nullifier ability. If this Pokemon has a Pokemon Tool card attached to it, your opponent can't play any Ace specs from their hand. I don't know what deck is going to take the most value out of this card or is going to get the most value out of this card. I think definitely something will. Honestly, seeing how Regidrago utilizes Prime Catcher so aggressively and potentially multiple times in a game with Legacy Star, I could definitely see Genesect kind of being like an anti-Regidrago card. Also really good up against stuff that plays Unfair Stamp like Gardevoir. So I'm not sure what deck is going to be able to take the most, get the most value out of Genesect, but I think it will happen at some point where we'll see Genesect start to pop up. So of course, makes its way onto the buy list as a 1 of, as that anti-Ace spec card. For the Dragon Pokemon, we got Haxorus as a 1 of, because it is a potential attacker to include Regidrago. I don't think you'd ever want to play 2 of these like you play 2 of a Dragapult in the Regidrago deck right now, because it is like your main go-to attacker in most situations. I don't think Haxorus ever becomes that, so only have Haxorus as a 1 of on the buy list. And then for the Kyurem, of course, that Plasma Bane, if your opponent has any cards in their discard pile that have colorless in its name, this Pokemon can use the Trifrost attack for just a colorless energy, and then what normally costs water, water, metal, metal, colorless, now could cost a colorless. Discard all energy from this Pokemon that's attacked as 1/10 to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon. So obviously very powerful up against Lost Zone decks. This might actually fully push Lost Zone decks out of the format. It's possible. We'll see. It's being included consistently in Regidrago, not much else, but that's because Regidrago can copy this thing's attack, the Trifrost attack, for the cost of the Grass Fire on the Regidrago V-Stars attack, and you don't have to pay the water, water, metal, metal, colorless, or a colorless if they don't have a colorless. Well, if they don't have a colorless, you can use it for the water, water, metal, metal, colorless. If you're playing up against a Lost Zone deck, you probably don't discard this. If you're playing Regidrago, you probably just bench it when you need it. But it can utilize the Trifrost attack against any matchup for a way less cost for that Grass Fire. So Regidrago can utilize this in a ton of matchups that aren't the Lost Zone matchup, like the Gardevoir matchup, the Charizard matchup, stuff like that. So it's made its way onto my buy list as a 2 of, actually, because I could see the meta getting to the point where Regidrago decks are fully based around the Kyurem combo with the Canceling Cologne plus a Gust effect. So Manaphy still in the format, but we do have Canceling Cologne in the format. So Regidrago lists right now in the Shrouded Fable format are running Canceling Cologne. So you can Gust up the Manaphy with Prime Catcher or Boss's Orders, play Canceling Cologne, shut off the Manaphy's ability, and then use Trifrost. You do discard all your energy attached to your Regidrago, which would be the Grass Fire, but then you get to knock out like 3 of your opponent's Pokemon on their side of the field if you're up against like a Gardevoir, a Charizard, or a Dragapult deck. So super powerful attack. Yeah, so I could definitely see it getting to the point where Regidrago's game plans are so based around Kyurem that you actually run 2 of them, so you can more aggressively find it, get into the discard pile, as well as minimize the effects of prize cards with the Kyurem. So made its way onto the buy list as a 2 of. Skip the colors Pokemon, nothing here, but we get to the trainer cards, and as always with most of my buy list, trainers we're just going to be getting 4 of pretty much everything. So Night Academy is a pretty cool stadium that's coming out. Definitely a little bit niche, not going to be like a go-to stadium to play in a ton of decks, but once their niche player's turn, that player might put a card from their hand on top of their deck. And there's a couple ways you can interact with this with a couple different decks. The main one that I'm looking at to include this in initially is United Wings with like a Morpeko in there. So this allows you to conserve cards before you play Research. So say if you have a hand of like 2 Boss's Orders and a Research. It's like, well, I need to play the Research this turn. I need to find energy or get something in the discard pile, whatever it might be. We know we have to play the Research. Discarding 2 Boss's Orders kind of stinks, but if we have an Academy at Night in play, what do I call this? Night at the Academy? Academy at Night in play, we can put the Boss's Orders on top of our deck, and then Research will draw into the Boss's Orders, guaranteed, but allows us to conserve it for later. In my United Wings list right now, I'm playing a Morpeko that says look at the top card of your deck and you may discard it. So you can also combo Night at the Academy with that. Use Night at the Academy, put a United Wings Pokemon on top of your deck that's in your hand. Maybe you don't have an Ultra Ball or another way to discard it. Then you can utilize Morpeko's ability, look at it, and be like, hey, there it is, and discard it. So decks like United Wings, it seems pretty powerful as a stadium, but also just a cool niche stadium. Once again, most trainer cards, I think all trainer cards are on my buy list from this set. So Night at the Academy makes it to the 4. If I ever go out of my way to say you should have this supporter card, this trainer card, I always say just go ahead and get 4 of them. Binding Mochi made its way as well onto the buy list of the 4 of attacks used by the poison Pokemon that this card is attached to do 40 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So we can combo this specifically with that Loyal 3 Dark Box deck. The Okidogi does 260 damage if it's poisoned, and if it's poisoned, it could do 40 more if it has a Binding Mochi attached, which has 300 damage. You get the Cobalion as well involved that says your basic Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, and then all of a sudden our Okidogi is one-hit KOing a Charizard EX. That's pretty good. So we're definitely playing Binding Mochis in there, but I'm sure there'll be other decks that pop up that can utilize this card in aggressive ways, poison ourselves with something like the Brute Bonnet. And then, you can get stuff like Radiant Sneasler involved around that, so your opponent's taking more damage, and the Binding Mochi is letting you hit harder. So, yeah, Binding Mochi, definitely good in the Loyal 3 Dark Box, but I think it'll have its moment in some other decks throughout its existence in the standard format. So, 4 of on the buy list. The Cassiopeia, you can use this card only when it is the last card in your hand. It's a pretty tough condition to meet, to be honest. Search your deck for up to 2 cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. But a pretty powerful effect if you can get there. Searching your deck for any 2 cards would probably pull together pretty much any game plan you could think of for the deck that you're able to play this in, as long as you're able to get this down to the only card in your hand. So it's a tough requirement, but it's a big reward. Peony eventually became a good card in the standard format, so I went ahead and put Cassiopeia on my buy list as a 4 of as well. Colch's Tenacity, search your deck for a stadium and an energy card, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So these kind of utility type supporters always are eventually good in some deck at some point. Be able to find a stadium card, talking stuff like Great Tree, energy card that could even get special energy, so you can get like mist energy to go with it. I don't know what kind of combination of cards you're going to be able to pull together off the Colch's Tenacity, but these kind of cards are always good eventually in some deck, and it's a trainer card, so you'll probably never play 4 in a single deck, but because it's my buy list, Colch's Tenacity made it onto my buy list as a 4 of. A Dangerous Laser is pretty terrible as an ace spec, but it is still an ace spec. It was tough. It's the one I wasn't sure if I want to actually put on my buy list, but it went ahead and made it anyways. It's a 1 of you need to get to have just in case. You never know. Your opponent's active is now Burn and Confused. What a terrible card. It did make its way onto my buy list as a 1 of. I feel like I maybe should delete it from the buy list, to be honest. It's tough. Janine's Secret Technique. Choose up to 2 of your dark Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a basic dark energy and attach it to that Pokemon, and then shuffle your deck. If you attach energy to your active Pokemon this way, it is now poison. So obviously this combos with the Loyal 3 Dark Box deck. Definitely a pretty powerful acceleration card. It is a supporter. It's not an item. That would be too good, to be honest. It is a supporter. Obviously works with Loyal 3 very well. Could definitely work with other dark Pokemon for sure. So it's made its way onto my buy list as a 4 of. Janine's Secret Technique. The Neutralization Zone. Prevent all damage done to Pokemon that don't have a rule box, both yours and your opponent's, by attacks from the opponent's Pokemon EX and Pokemon V. So this is a really, really powerful stadium. The problem, of course, is it is a stadium, which means your opponent can interact with that slot on the board by putting their own stadium in play. They can Lost Vacuum this, and on top of that, this card can't be put into your hand or deck from the discard pile, so you can't recover this card with any form of trainer recovery, whatever, Silene, stuff like that. You can't put this card back into your hand or back into your deck. So it's gone. I don't know why they didn't send it to the Lost Zone, to be honest. When this card is replaced, put it into the Lost Zone. That's weird. Maybe they're trying to just get away from the Lost Zone in general and not have cards that interact with the Lost Zone. I guess that could be why. But very powerful stadium if you can get it to stick and play. Yeah, that's kind of the question, though. Can you get this to stick and play? And the answer is most decks have an answer to this. So you'd have to be building a deck purely around trying to abuse this. There is like a fossil in the format currently that says, while it's in the active, your opponent can't play any stadium cards. So that would stop your opponent replacing this stadium with a stadium. So you could like play some kind of hit and run deck where you play a Pokemon that hits them and then it goes back into your deck, or it goes back to the bench and then you push up that fossil with the neutralization zone in play, and then your opponent wouldn't be able to draw prize cards as long as they're attacking with EX and V Pokemon. But they could also have some other attacker like a B-Barrel that they could attack with and still draw prize cards. So yeah, it's a lot of conditions need to be met, and a deck needs to be like fully crafted around this card to really get the full advantage of it. But it's one of those cards where it could pop up and like win a tournament based on just like the format and the meta, just no one playing answers to stadium cards currently. If that ever comes around where it's like no one's playing stadiums, no one's playing Lost Vacuum, okay, I can fully build a deck around this and just like spike a tournament. We could definitely see that happen at some point. Night Stretcher, super powerful Pokemon and energy, just recovery card in general, I guess. Put a Pokemon or a basic energy card from your discard pile into your hand. At first, when I read this, I was like, it's okay. Is it really better than Super Rod ever? And I think it definitely is. And there's a lot of situations where it is better. Over in Japan, it's been heavily played in stuff like Regidrago because it can aggressively find energy or Pokemon depending on the situation. You are aggressively discarding cards with that deck because you're playing Research and you're using Legacy Star, and sometimes you play Pokestop. So a lot of cards are entering your discard pile very aggressively, and some of them are going to be energy, some of them are going to be Pokemon, and some of them you want back. And Night Stretcher lets you pick some of them, one of them, Pokemon or an energy, and it goes directly to your hand. So it like skips the whole process of Super Rod, putting it into the deck, and then having to find it out of the deck. You just get to go get the thing and use the thing immediately. So yeah, Night Stretcher, powerful Pokemon recovery card. Once again, it's a trainer card, so a 4 of on the buy list. Up next, second A spec or third A spec in this set, the Poke Vital A. Heal 150 damage from one of your Pokemon. This card can't be put into your hand or deck from the discard pile. So once again, can't reuse this thing. Maybe it's for good, maybe it's for bad. I don't know. This one doesn't seem that powerful, but still healing 150 from one of your Pokemon, especially if that puts your opponent's Pokemon out of range of KOing this on the next turn. It's not bad. That's for sure. It's not bad. So once again, 1 of on the buy list because it is an A spec. The Power Glass Tool card. When I first read this, I was pretty underwhelmed by it, but I've seen how they've been utilizing it over in Japan, and I'm definitely coming around on this card pretty heavily. At the end of your turn, after your attack, if the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot, you may attach a basic energy from your discard pile to it. So that's actually pretty powerful in a couple decks for sure. The first one is the Galvantula EX deck. It does 180 damage for a Grass, Lightning, and a Fighting energy. Then you discard those 3 energy from the Pokemon, and then your opponent can't play any item cards. So pretty good, except you discard the 3 energy. That's what you need to recover. So the Power Glass can recover an energy for you if you have it on your Galvantula. Attachment for turn becomes the second energy. And then playing something like Glass Trumpet with Blissey EX or Ogre Pawns and E-Switches or something like that can get you the rest of the energy to continuously attack with Galvantula turn after turn after turn. Not infinitely, but 4 or 5 turns of 180 plus item lock in a row is going to be enough to probably beat most decks. So also stuff like Ogre Pawn, like Cornerstone Ogre Pawn, like Quad or Cornerstone Ogre Pawn, Power Glass being a way to like accelerate energy to it and like make it an aggressive attacking deck. I've seen that as well. That's interesting. That's a little scary. Even stuff like Mimikyu, like a quad Mimikyu deck with Power Glass to have some form of energy acceleration to actually be able to set up Mimikyu after Mimikyu after Mimikyu could be something there as well. Definitely interesting things I've seen so far with Power Glass, but definitely better than I initially thought it was when I first read this card. So once again, it's a 4 of. And last up, Xerosic's Machinations. How do you say this word? What does this word mean? Your opponent discards cards from their hand until they have 3 cards in their hand. So not a super disruptive. I mean, I guess you could call it like a disruption card, but it's more of like a resource draining card. Like if your opponent has a 10 card hand, they get to pick the 3 cards they get to keep, but still discarding 7 cards hurts. Like it doesn't matter how many bad cards. I mean, you could have like 7 dead cards for the situation in your hand, I guess, but it's pretty unlikely you have 7 terrible cards out of a 10 card hand. Some of them are going to still be pretty good. You don't want to discard. You're going to keep your 3 best cards, of course, but this can hit pretty hard. People are playing this in like stall specifically, because in the stall matchup, a lot of game situations can get to the point where both players are just kind of passing back and forth and building up big hands, and then the opponent of the stall deck will like play an Iono, shuffle their hand back to their deck, and then they keep drawing through it. So it'll give a way for stall to drastically speed up games and potentially even add new win conditions to games where your opponent isn't quite out of the game yet, but they're kind of just waiting to put together the right resources before they actually start attacking again. And Xerosix can like severely limit their access to certain resources and leave them in a spot where they can no longer pull together enough attacks to actually close out the game. Once again, a card you'd probably never play 4 of in a deck, but it is a trainer card. It's on my buy list, so it is a 4 of. And that's the final card in my Shrouded Fable set review buy list. I didn't do a top 10 video for Shrouded Fable, but it's another thing I'm going to definitely... For Shrouded Fable, I probably would have done like a top 5, to be honest, because there's not that many cards in this deck, in this set. But next major set release, sets moving forward, also be coming at y'all with a top 10 video, top 10 cards in the set video. But once again, hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of this format of the set review buy list. Once again, buy list will be down in the description. I'm sure some of you will be curious to check out the site Justin Basil because I haven't used it before, so I'm sure it's new to some of you. There'll be a link in the description for that as well. And I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.